Most of the anime that I consume is done through seasonal anime watching, which means watching shows as they air in Japan week by week. Even with the uprising of streaming platforms such as Netflix and their pretty popular binge model method, where they release all episodes at once, many people seem to enjoy this form of television consumption over waiting week by week. But when it comes to anime, most people seem to hate this, or rather they hate it when companies hold out on something that is being released weekly somewhere else, but a company like, say, Netflix holds out on releasing any episodes until months later. But an interesting trend I've started to pick up on is many fans who follow shows that aren't just kill them all, blast away all your troubles, or we can call them pretty shallow but fun shows, seem to start having issues that carry on throughout most of the show. And ultimately the only reason they typically are ranting or having issues is because they obviously aren't fit to watch the weekly model for shows that are either slow burns or more character driven rather than an action or fan service show. Now I will be covering some spoilers for these shows, so if any of these you haven't seen, probably stop watching or you can carry on. Just don't complain to me if something gets spoiled for you, you've been warned. Let's look at one of my favorite anime from 2017 that carried over into the winter 2018 anime season, The Ancient Magus' Bride. This is a pretty popular show, but if you follow weekly discussions from any given site, say Reddit, YouTube, Twitter, you'll see a very common trend. That being people forgetting information and setup laid out in the early episodes that is now being claimed as plot holes or weak writing because they can't remember what happened weeks back. Now granted, I too can forget things 18 weeks earlier, but this is the extreme. The main character Chisei is what's known as a slave beggy in this world, an untrained magical force that if trained properly is the best at her craft, that being magic. However, as she is at the start of the series, and for more or less the entire series, she attracts danger to her and those around her. At first, people didn't complain about this because at the very beginning of the series, this is explained. She lives a cursed life because she is an untrained slave beggy. But fast forward weeks later, and this information seems to be forgotten by a good number of people. Chisei is always getting into trouble for no good reason. What a damsel in distress. This is something that is pretty important to the series overall, and it'd be like forgetting what the main objective of an adventure show was. Not to mention, there are plenty of times in the first half Chisei trains with her magic and montages or other scenes like that. Then you get to the second half and Chisei turns into an animal and people freak out. In a series where the main character uses magic, she turned into an animal without any prior explanation? What horrible writing. This doesn't just stem from needing to binge rather than follow weekly, this just stems from not being able to think for yourself, but these examples can go on forever with the series, so let's move on. Let's look at another anime from winter 2018, Violet Evergarden. This was a Kyoto animation show that follows a girl who lived her entire life in the military and now has a job writing ghost letters for people despite not really understanding human emotions that well. If you've seen any show from Kyoto Animation, you know they mostly do slice of life and slow burn series. Yet, week after week, people who probably would enjoy the show if they binged it say how slow and how pointless it is. I mean, why are we just watching her write letters? Where is the plot going, and when is it gonna start moving forward? Some studios have a template that they follow, and some studios rarely deviate away from it, and Kyoto Animation is exactly that from both animation design and as well as their general stories. Some people just won't like the show and that's fine, but most people I see following this week after week, based on what their comments are saying, would indicate that if they just waited a few weeks to have a few episodes at a time to watch, they'd probably enjoy the show far more because obviously there's aspects that they like, but not enough happens for them per episode to warrant a week after week viewing, but because it's airing right now, they have to watch it as it comes out for some random reason. Let's rewind to 2017 again, with a series from the writer of Gantz, Inuyashiki. There's a standout moment in the show that rubbed me the wrong way, and it wasn't because of the show and what it was doing, but it was because of the sheer number of people who can't pick up on subtle information and then claim weeks later something was pulled out of thin air. In the series, two characters have alien robot bodies. Halfway through the show, the abilities of healing start getting introduced and they start getting more and more complex as the show goes on. How far can these characters truly heal someone? What is their limit? Slowly over the episodes, you start seeing it go further and further, and when the characters get shot up by machine guns or trapped in a burning building, people try to come up with ridiculous theories on how they could be saved, even though the entire way through the anime was building up to showing what their bodies could and could not do. These three examples I gave for a reason, to showcase people not being able to remember information from previous episodes, and the other just being a show, just not something many seem to be able to handle weekly, but in a binge format they probably could. There seems to be the stigma that unless all the episodes are released at once for everyone, like in the case of say Devilman Crybaby, then we must watch the anime like everyone else, and that usually means weekly. And if it truly does work for you, as it does for me, then excellent. But many seem to have convinced themselves that they only like the weekly anime watching experience, when in actuality they seem to be hurting their own viewing experience, because either there's too much information to keep in their minds week after week, or they are following too many shows in any given season to remember key information, say 10 weeks down the line. Or maybe it's just a show that's just better off to binge. There are plenty of shows I do this with. I say, this was a fun show, but I want to wait for all the episodes, as otherwise my experience is going to be tampered with. Primarily comedies or shows such as the Fate series. That's why I'm waiting to binge Fate Extra. There are so many seasonal watchers who only watch seasonal anime because it's new, and they want to write their comment on the first discussion post that they see. It's why they avoid shows not just from years back, but maybe in just the prior season. Because it's not just about what you should watch, it's about how you should watch any given anime. Sometimes you'll find shows from years back that you'll only want to watch an episode or two at a time. Or maybe it's just a currently airing show that you should just binge as you're keeping up with too much as is, or it's just better for you personally. Each season you'll see people rant about plot holes or information that makes absolutely no sense to them. But more times than not, I'll think that was explained, or obviously it will be explained in future episodes, and if only you waited maybe a few weeks, this rant wouldn't have happened. Some people are better off binging, and sadly many in the anime community seem to despise this practice, when honestly it can be better for either most or just you. I see this enough each season, but really the amount of comments I've been seeing in the winter 2018 season sparked this video. Not liking something is fine. Criticizing something is absolutely fine. But when you see so much criticism that just stems from someone either not paying attention to past information or being impatient to wait for the following weeks to explain it, you just need to stop and tell people to start learning how to binge shows they clearly should be binging. But let me know your thoughts on the matter. What's a show you've seen someone rant about that you know for a fact if they just binged it, their issues probably would have gone away, or even something you have experienced yourself? I'd love to hear your thoughts. And before you leave, please be sure to subscribe and like the video if you haven't already. And if you like what you see here and you want to help support what I do for as little as $1 a month, then also consider heading on over to my Patreon. So until next time everyone, please take care and y'all have a good one.